everyone. We're almost ready for FP2 here in Macau in around 5 minutes time. In FP1 we saw Bebu Girolami set the fastest lap in wet conditions. The track is drying out at the moment, although it's still declared wet. Let's grab a few words with team manager from GOAT Racing, Pepe Oriola. Pepe, you're very much in the title fight coming into this round. Just 10 points behind the lead. What's the feeling within the team, and also how's everyone feeling?
Well, we are really happy and excited to be here in this position. We didn't expect at the beginning of the year to be fighting for the title. Today the weather is not helping us. We are one of the teams with less budget, so we cannot avoid to have any crash, and we know that with a wet track it increases the risk of having a crash. The cars were not performing as 100% in FP1, so we are going to try to solve that for FP2 and hopefully for a dry condition qualifying tomorrow.
Like you said, they weren't performing 100%. We saw P7 and P10 for Macau. It's wet at the moment. It's going to be wet in qualifying apparently, and also it's going to be dry on Saturday and Sunday. Does that create any issues when testing the cars? Because we've got mixed conditions all weekend here.
Well, we are trying to work on the setup. Of course, we think that we know what was wrong in FP1. We're going to try to test it in FP2. But the conditions are not the same as FP1. It's much less water now in the track, and tomorrow it seems that it's going to be dry, but we don't know how much. Wet, and we don't know how much wet it will be. So just trying to get the best of it and hope for a good qualifying tomorrow, because here is key.
Yeah. Well, just pushing you, if you can hear me. You said you know what was wrong in FP1. Can you tell us? Can you elaborate on that?
Well, we think that our tires from China were different because everybody started with new wet tires.
Right.
We used some used ones from China, and we think that the cycle of being wet, warm and cold in the container, this changing of temperature makes the tire a bit harder.
Okay.
So we think that could be one of the explanations why we were so far away.
Okay. Well, final round of the season. We're here in Macau, first street circuit of the championship for this year. You've raced here a number of times in your career. Why is this place so special to come to?
Well, the atmosphere is crazy. It's in the middle of a big city. Macau, they call it Las Vegas of China. A lot of expectation. We are also sharing the track with the FIA, the World Cup, with the Formula 3, that a lot of the best drivers in the world in Formula 1 always have won in Formula 3.
Yeah.
So it's special to be here and to decide the title here.
Best of luck to you and the team. Thank you, Pepe Oriola there. Good luck to all the guys. It's almost time for FP2. Back to Alan and David in commentary.
Lisa, thanks very much. So we will get the cars out on track very shortly, and this session, half an hour, ready to go. So the times that we had earlier on in the day, topped by Nestor Girolami, and now it is a drier road. It'll be a faster road, and it's going to get quicker and quicker and quicker all the way through this session. It's going to be another fascinating 30 minutes. The best time from the first pre-practice session, then Nestor Girolami's Hyundai Elantra, 2:48.761. That's now the target that they've all got to go for.
Just seeing the local road sports, it was the first session that we've had today where we didn't have an interruption. So we had a drying circuit. It was looking pretty impressive as we got to the last 5 minutes or so, all keeping our fingers crossed that they could get to the checkered flag and not have any kind of interruption, and we did it. So we're keeping our fingers crossed now that the TCRs can do exactly the same. We've got some top touring car drivers in this field.
There's one of them, Ted Bjork, who drives number 111, which is one of the Lincoln Co's. Gabriele Tarquini.
There's a couple of them.
Yeah, ever a popular man.
Top touring car drivers that come to Macau every year, and yeah, Gabriele Tarquini was the first interview that we had this morning to herald the arrival of the entrants for the Macau gear race this year for 2024.
It is the last round of the FIA TCR World Tour, and that championship is up for grabs. It's also the last round of TCR China, TCR Asia, those championships up for grabs as well. Everybody that takes part within the two races is eligible for World Tour points, but the World Tour regulars not eligible for China nor Asia points. You've got to commit to either of those series. So we've got two contests going on independent of the overall umbrella of the World Tour, but that's where all the main focus is going to be. And the second race anyway takes on extra importance because that is the gear race. So now the circuit goes live, cars pouring their way out on track, and a very crowded house it is going to be.
Half an hour we get for our second free practice session of the day for the Macau gear race and the Kumho FIA TCR World Tour events of Macau. You can still see in these sections there are puddles. It's not just down in the pit lane and paddock, but out on the circuit as well. The streets of Macau, you can see the puddles, little puddles that appear all over the road course here at Macau, but we have areas also now which are, for the first time today, look at that, into Lisboa, looking properly dry.
And that therefore brings the commitment out of people, doesn't it? The Lincoln Co there having a demon dive up on the inside, and we've not had that much use of late of the crane on the inside there. Sort of biding its time before it gets busy again. At the start of the day we had the odd FR car in the wall, but we've been okay since then. John Philippi there goes by.
Give it
in
time.
The Audi. Yeah,
there'll be plenty of opportunity.
Oh, I have no doubt. I have no doubt. So riding around the gear circuit and on the mountain part, if you like, this gives you an idea of just how narrow it is, although touring cars with a bit of compliance from your rival can overtake around there. Certain parts.
Yeah, because wing mirrors are optional and are
they're overrated.
Yes.
I just want to see what's going on behind you.
Yes, indeed.
Look out the front. So Ted Bjork is the man doing the chasing, and the car's released now onto an outlap. It's the next one that's going to be of interest, the first proper flying lap, but also to see just how much better the track surface is. A 2:48 should easily be improvable. So down towards Melko hairpin comes Ted Bjork, wide in, gets the line beautifully, and then accelerates downhill. The road starts to open up pretty much as you get towards Fisherman's Bend, then our bend, out of which there is the pit straight.
It's quite interesting to be on board with the car heading up towards the Macau hairpin, because you would imagine as the driver that is the most unusual of sights, because you are literally turning back on yourself. Yeah. So your view of the approach to the Macau hairpin is just totally peculiar, because you are not only going up and down on that section of the circuit, but also turning to a blind area to your right. It's very peculiar, very unique to Macau.
Now, Norbert Michelisz into the pit lane, which may be for a tyre cross, other drivers staying out there, partly because it is still damp and maybe you want to get a bit more warmth into the tyres, but the other reason perhaps for not doing a tyre cross is the length of the lap. So in theory, they should all be warm by the end of a lap anyway. And equally, if you do come in and do a tyre cross, the danger is that you are then released at the back of the traffic. So staying out there is probably advisable.
And you can see these dry lines, can't you? That run from Lisboa towards San Francisco Hill, very notable. And we've got dry tyres standing by down in pit lane. I did wonder about that.
Interesting.
It's going to be so for Norbert Michelisz to take on board, the first car to take on board a dry tyre. Is that going to be the first car today that's taken a dry tyre on board? I think so. Yeah,
Rob Huff's come into the pit lane as well, so the Macau Master might well also opt to go in that direction. And another one in is Max Hart, who is the Irish driver vying for TCR Asia title honours in a car that is rather patriotically coloured in the Irish tricolour. So that's Esteban Guerrieri, who in the session this morning was 7th fastest. But he's looking good at the moment, Guerrieri in the Honda. And there is Rob Huff, who is being brave and going on to slick and doing it early so that by the end of the session, if you like, they will be up to temperature. As long as it doesn't rain again, that's going to be, I suspect, the right move. And Norbert Michelisz has done it as well.
The job of the wet tyre is to channel water away, to push it out of the way with the grooves on the tyre. And so many parts of the circuit, from the camera angles that we're seeing around the circuit, are, okay, maybe slightly damp, but there's no water to actually push out of the way. It's a warm, dry tyre is going to be a good tyre to have.
And it's worth a roll of the dice. I mean, Rob Huff,
yeah.
with respect, he's not fighting for a championship here. He'd like another win, obviously, but he doesn't have to play it safe for championship points.
He wants that historic 10th win, doesn't he, here at Macau? And I think a lot of other people would rather like him to have that as well. Huge amount of support around the world for Huffy, including his family, that will be, whatever time, day or night, they'll be tuning in.
So Esteban Guerrieri, first one up to the timing line to offer a flying lap, and in the morning they were doing 2:48 as the absolute best time, and 2:48.5 by Esteban Guerrieri. So interesting that track conditions aren't yet markedly different in terms of a lap time, at least. Ted Bjork, though, it's the 2:46s. Mikael Ashkuna at 2:45. So now we are looking at a much faster circuit.
So yeah, and we've had quite a few changes with that first flying lap completed at the top of the times, and that's the car. Top of the times with a 2:45.3 for Ashkona. Mikael Ashkona, top of the times, car 196, 2:45.3. This is free practice 2 for the Macau gear race. They go qualifying tomorrow in 2 sections, just after midday, just before 1 o'clock in the afternoon local time. Qualifying 1 gets underway at 12:55, and 1:35 qualifying 2 gets underway tomorrow.
Which is for the top 12, isn't it? And then you take that for the grid for race 1, and then you do a reversal of the top 10 out of Q2 for the gear race grid. Right, drivers hustling on. Mikael Ashkona then is the fastest. It's going to be interesting, though, isn't it, to see what the early lap times are like out of Mikulish and Huff, and how long it's going to take to get to that tipping point where the slicks start to be the gun tyre. But you're right, it's much, much drier down at Lisboa.
And they're going to be ahead of the game, aren't they? Because they're going to have done laps to get them up to temperature. Everybody else comes in now and wants to change onto a dry tyre. Yep, but they're going to be a lap behind as far as getting the tyres up to temperature. So this is going to be, as you say, very interesting to watch what those lap times are going to be and when they're going to start to come in.
Yellow flag briefly, but replaced with a green, as there Dusan Borkovic has gone off the road. Gets it going again. Dusan Borkovic, the Serbian. Right, so the Hyundai team looking on. Gabriele Tarquini marshalling the troops and going on board now with Norbert Mikulish. So this is his outlap on his slick tyre. Might be a bit tippy-toey. Weaving left and right, getting the warmth into the tyres, getting the pressures up as well. And 2:45, currently the best lap time that we've had. And back into the pit lane comes Mikulish. Now, does he need to cross them and then go for a time?
That's going to be for a cross, I reckon. That's how they're going to work. And it's a free practice session, so although this process takes a while, it's the way that you get that equal heat distribution amongst the tyres. So I reckon that's probably what's going to happen. Let's wait and see. Looks a busy pit lane, doesn't it, when you're in the car?
Yeah, but you'd have thought with a 6-kilometre long lap and a reasonable mix of left and rights, you wouldn't need to do a cross because the load would go through quite a lot of the car over the course of the lap. However, Mikulish pits and Guerrieri is in, Björk is in, Ashkona is in as well. The other one that's going to be worth watching is Max Hart, because he was another early stopper, and assuming he's gone onto slicks as well, he's going to be like Huff and Mikulish ahead of the game.
It's a checking of tyre pressures. We'd like to see the end of that pit stop, really, just to be absolutely sure of what they're doing during that. But we reckon it's pretty much a regular thing that a touring car would do to cross the tyres over for even heat distribution.
John Filippi has pitted, so he will go slicks. I think they're all coming in now for slicks, aren't they? But I'm waiting to see what Rob Huff does, whether he's going to do a tyre cross or whether he's going to stay out and warm them on the track, as it were.
He's not in our first screen, is he, of timing at the moment, so it's difficult to see what Rob's doing on this lap or if he's coming to pit lane. Let's have a look on this.
So those that were on wet going on to slicks. And we've had the first 10 minutes of the session elapse. Interesting, isn't it? People are going on the slicks, and yet Dusan Bokovic was caught out by the conditions and ended up the escape road, but he got away with that without damage.
So Huffy's been into pit lane, so he's come in for a cross as well.
Oh, right,
see that. Yeah. So he's on a pit out.
Yeah, I'll try to keep an eye on him.
Yeah. But apparently so. He's on a pit out. So maybe we just didn't pick it up.
Yellow flag at Lisboa once again. And let's try and work out who it is in a moment as the cars turn through. No, it doesn't show us.
The ever drying line on the run towards San Francisco Hill from Lisboa, and then on this part of the circuit significantly damper in various sections, so it's always going to be a compromise, isn't it, with this drying circuit. For the next session that we have on circuit, it's going to be interesting because they will have very, very different conditions with the GT3 cars, which is coming up next here at Macau.
Rob Huff has just been through, so I don't think he made a second pit stop. I think he stayed out.
That was still up from the change.
That earlier outlap, but he has done an absolute best in the last sector. So that proves instantly that the slick is the way to go. Absolute best in the last sector, and if anybody was thinking about it before and undecided, they better get in and get changed now. So for Goat Racing, Pepe Oriola's team, tyre changes have been done, and it should be therefore Rob Huff goes to the top of the times early because he hasn't needed a second stop to do a tyre cross. Max Hart's another one on slicks, getting himself towards the pointy end. 8th quickest, 2:48.049. So at the moment the slick is slower, but we're not far off getting it to the right point. And damage to, I fear, yes, stop the session, is for the Hyundai of Hwang Do-yun out of TCR Asia, and he's hit the wall good and hard. Session is stopped.
Yeah, not surprising. The car can't drive, can it, the way it is?
No.
It needs to have a lift. The driver, good news, gets out of the car and is about to find a place of security, which is not the work of a moment on the gear circuit. Where do I go now? Hands on hips. Hang on. Where do I go? That way? Yeah, that way. Takes a while, doesn't it? Just to work out where best to go to get to a place of safety.
So he's third in TCR Asia in the championship, so this is bad news for him. Other drivers then heading back to the pit lane as the session is stopped. The one thing we haven't yet touched on, and it is a relevant element, is that in TCR, in the World Tour, in the TCR Championships, they have compensation weight. So there are some cars carrying up to 40 kilos of weight, like Max Hart, like David Zhu, and also like Santiago Urrutia. Others with compensation weight with as low as 10. And there are some that don't carry any whatsoever. So there is a mix of cars that are heavier because of the success of the driver over the last round of the championship. Right, 16 minutes and counting, and this is going to lose them quite a chunk of time, I think, given where that car is.
And yeah, it being free practice, the clock continues to count down, which counts down now to 16 minutes of this session remain. So we get ever closer to the halfway point. Yep, it's only one little moment that you get during a session that upsets things for everyone. That's the 62 car going straight on down at Lisboa.
No, that was elsewhere. He had done it at Lisboa, you're right. That was either at Police or Moorish, but going up the escape road to Shamborkovic, but that's 2 incidents he had. And at the moment, there's a queue of people trying to get into their pit bay.
It gets to be a very busy pit lane when you get these stoppages, and if those that hadn't come in to swap onto dry tyres have not yet done so, fairly hard work for the teams as well to get this turned around quickly. They have 5 wheel studs on each of the wheels, so it's not one central wheel nut on these cars, so it takes a little while, and that's the car that we need to get recovered. And I think it's going to require the course vehicle with the recovery crane on the back of it to pick that one up.
Those that have gone on to slicks, like a Huff or a Mikulic or whoever that did it early, lose the advantage now, because any heat they got into them is going to dissipate. And it's going to be an even field, if you like, because pretty much everybody will be going out on a cold, slick tyre, and it's therefore going to take a while to get everything back up to temperature, and they're not going to get that many laps in anyway. So the clock rapidly ticks down. It's amazing how much time you lose.
Yeah, it's going to be tricky, this, isn't it? It is just a free practice session, but this one is maybe a little bit more important than the one we saw earlier on today, because that was wet, wet, wet as far as track conditions were concerned. This is a drying circuit, and this is the first opportunity they've had to use dry tyres, and they are bit by bit coming in and changing onto dry tyres. And the reason it's more significant is that the weather forecast for the weekend suggests that maybe they will be racing on dry track conditions, very warm conditions as well. So to get some laps in with dry tyres is going to be absolutely vital.
It is. You can see there Mikael Ashkena's car, which I think has scraped the wall, but he's got away with it. And Ashkena currently the fastest, 2 minutes 45.3. Everybody else arriving in their pit bays, including Nestor Girolami, another of the Hyundai drivers out of the World Tour part of the race. You've got the BRC Hyundai N squad, of course. You've got Hyundai N by Z-Speed from TCR Asia, and Hyundai N, which is the TCR China team. So same cars, but different teams operating them for different championships as well. 13 minutes and counting, but the car is being lifted, so we are getting closer. And you can see there a very dry line indeed.
Yes, you can. You can also see the team working so much experience around the circuit here at Macau to find the safest and quickest way of effecting a recovery of a vehicle, to get it on the back of the flatbed, back into pit lane, get the circuit clear and get the cars back out on circuit. They are so well drilled at these kind of recoveries. Wherever it is around the circuit, they do it so very quickly. You look at some of the accidents that you have at Macau with bodywork everywhere and cars littered everywhere, and you can't believe that 20 minutes later, track is clear, ready to go again.
It's true. It's true. Job done. Car retrieved. There's not much debris to sweep up there, and not much liquid spilt either, thankfully. We haven't actually seen how the car incurred the damage, have we? But clearly it was a wide run and biffed the wall. So the car of the TCR Asia driver, Huang Do-yun, having been...
couple of minutes we've got until we get the session back underway.
Yeah.
For the few of them that had come in and changed onto dry tyres and had got the tyres one lap in and were doing their best to get the dry tyres fully up to temperature, they've got to do the work again. They won't have lost all of the temperature, but they would have lost a good deal of it. So recovery vehicle coming in now, and that car's going to require a little bit of work, isn't it?
It is. Rob Huff's Audi goes through a tyre cross. They may as well do now that the session has been interrupted, but possibly wouldn't have done otherwise. The Volcano Motorsport team ready to dispatch that car. Teammate John Filippi in as well. And 11 minutes are on the clock as we get closer and closer to the resumption of the session. In under a minute to be confirmed. It rather depends where that recovery vehicle is and how quickly it can be off the road. You can release the cars because by the time they get to the end of a lap, the recovery vehicle will be clear. It's just sort of juggling the timings of everything to get it all to work. And yes, we are within to the last 30 seconds then of stoppage time before the session gets back underway.
And when it gets back underway, we'll have 10 minutes remaining, so the final third of the overall 30-minute session for the second time today that we've seen the Macau Gear Race cars, the FIA TCR World Tour events of Macau, to get back out on circuit. Let's hope we have a neat and tidy final 10 minutes so we can get some meaningful laps on dry tyres. The green light shown. Everybody wants to go, don't they? Go, go, go. And they all go down pit lane now. It's going to be a very busy track. A few of them are going to hold back, maybe.
yeah, again, get some clear track space. But those that can be at the front of the queue, eager to be on the circuit. So 9.5 minutes and counting. And pretty much everybody now on a slick tyre. But that in itself is going to perhaps be a problem because it's not a totally dry road and the tyres are cold.
Yes.
So let's see who's the first one to drop it. Yes, indeed. I can't believe we're going to get through 9 minutes without somebody having a moment.
I think you're probably right.
We'll see, yeah. Right, so a much, much drier circuit. Much faster circuit, therefore, as well. And the times better in this than they were in FP1 earlier on in the day, but it was wetter and colder. Right, riding on board then with, in 186, the Goat Racing Honda, the FL5 of Esteban Guerrieri, the Argentine driver. And he's at the front of the queue. He's got a clear road, and he's pushing as well, absolutely charging. More he can push, more warmth into the tyres. And there's the first drama, wide into the wall. Who's that we've lost? 41?
41, yeah. It's the...
Gary Kwok, Honda, went off. So Gary Kwok has rejoined, but I said I'd be surprised if people got through without strife, and there's the first casualty. Let's see. Couldn't make the corner, and finds traffic ahead as well, ploughs into the back of 55, which is Martin Scher. So that was a bit clumsy, really. It's two of them understeered, and we've touched on this earlier on in the day. If you're not going to make the corner, don't keep fighting it and risk hitting the tyres. Go left and get up the escape road.
There is an option there.
Yeah.
And that's why the option is there. Yeah. So, yeah, that can be avoided 9 times out of 10.
Right, the Lincoln Co. fleet coming down towards Melco. Cars for Marcin Qua, Jan Erlaché, Ted Björk and Santiago Urrutia. So you had 3 of the 4 running together. You're on board in 111 with Ted Björk. Go back many, many years, like 24 of them now, and he was a young gun in sports car racing in the FIA Sports Racing Series, but has made a real reputation for himself as a touring car champion now. One or two rather earnest conversations going on down in the pit lane as the Lincoln Co's, or Links and Co, arrive, some for the pits and some to carry on. Wouldn't have thought that pitting now for a tire cross was a very good idea, given how little time left there is. Ted Björk on a mission and gets himself up past Marcin Qua, going down towards Reservoir.
Really was on a mission, very determined to get through there, and a quick part of the circuit as well, but we've got to press on. We've only got 6.5 minutes just about of the session remaining, so if you want to put meaningful laps in and learn about the car this weekend on dry tyres, on a drying track, then now is the time to do it. You've got to press on.
Absolutely right, and Ted Björk then is pressing, but we're not yet to purple sectors. This is Ted Björk coming out of Lisboa, narrow section of the circuit up through San Francisco. Mikael Ashkona, though, is now doing a purple sector to get himself quicker. Esteban Guerrieri doing a purple as well. Marco Butti likewise. And that is Jan Erlaché, who looks as though he was only now going on to slicks.
That's very perplexing as to why they're only doing that now.
Unless he genuinely thought there was still enough water out there to get another good lap out of the wets, but it's clearly not been the plan.
Marco Butti goes in the first sector, quickest overall. Ashkona goes quickest overall in the second sector. I don't think there's going to be much question on what tyre you need.
No. Marco Butti did win on the road at the FIA Motorsport Games. It was a really good drive.
Wow.
But he turned the anti-lap on during the race, and that's an exclusion. You can run it, but it's got to be turned on before the race, not during.
Oh.
And he turned it on during, so what was a great drive ended up as exclusion for Marco Butti, which is a real shame. But we know he's quick, and right now, Butti sandwiched between Erlaché and Hart.
And Ashkona goes very good. Thank you. Sorry I missed it. I was getting involved in my purple sectors, but I'll give your line a chance to breathe.
Thanks.
Ashkona has got purple in Sector 2 and Sector 3 up towards the Macau hairpin. We're about to complete Sector 4 for the car that is overall quickest at the moment. Ted Bjork has put in a purple in Sector 4. That's taken away by Marcin Khoa because and now Girolami puts in the purple full sector. They're all battling over being quickest in that full sector, aren't they?
They are. Well, as you say, Guerrieri has done the absolute best. Marco Butti on a roll because he's also improved in every sector. Comes then up towards the end of the lap. But the first one of note is going to be the Lincoln Co. It's getting brighter all the time. Ted Bjork goes by, goes quickest, 2:42, best touring car time of the day. Might not be the absolute best because there are other quick people behind him, such as Girolami, who goes faster. Nestor Girolami, 2:37. That's 5 seconds quicker than anybody else. That is a massive, massive gain. Marcin Khoa into the pit lane. So Girolami from Marco Butti up to second fastest, and Dusan Borkovic was third, but John Philippi goes ahead of him.
You've done well to keep up with that because it was changing, and it's Girolami that is top of the times then. 2:37.165, and Rob Huff goes second. So a 2:37.5. Rob Huff, one of the first to change onto the slick tyre, goes second. That master of Macau.
We've got a car that's stranded on the pit straight, and it looks like number 1 Martin Cao, who is the driver's second in TCR China, and that's another red flag. And that might be the end. He's hit the wall, that's why he's ground to a halt on the pit straight. You can see he's gone wide, you can see the witness marks on the red and white conveyor belting, you can see the debris on the road. And Martin Cao has given the wall a whack, and that's another crumpled Hyundai. Session will not be resumed. So that, as they say, is that. So that was
I thought that was going to be your final line.
No.
That, as they say, is that.
This is it. This is the that. Bang, bang, and bang again. And he rattles the wall. And it's quite a good save, wasn't it, by the Hyundais behind, not to get sort of embroiled in that. Yeah. But Martin Cao, with quite a bit of damage, broken suspension as well, comes to a halt on the pit straight. And by the time you've got everybody into the pit lane and moved, the car would have run out of time. So session will not be resumed. I'm not really sure that actually the slick tyre, well, yeah, for some it proved what it could do, but we never got enough running in that session on either the wet nor the slick, did we?
So often when we have touring cars on the gear circuit here at Macau, it is impossible to get into any kind of a flow. Yeah. We've had free practice sessions, we've had qualifying sessions, and we've had races as well, where they get interrupted and you can't actually get into any kind of groove of the session or race. And that was one of those.
It was TCR China last year, wasn't it? Yeah, that never actually had a qualifying session time because it was interrupted twice and in the end abandoned, and they had to revert to free practice times. But yeah, for some drivers, you've seen what the slick could do, but only a handful before the red flag came out, and it ain't going to restart. So the drivers in a few moments will be marshalled back to the paddock, and it's going to be Nestor Girolami then the fastest by 0.3 of a second from Rob Huff.
I would love to have known what Huffy could have done on the next lap. That was impressive, coming in 3/10 behind Girolami, and conversations taking place. Gabriele Tarquini down in pit lane.
Yeah, there'll be a lot of frustration from the teams that they've lost so much track time, because out of half an hour, you know, they've had probably, what, 15, 16 minutes of running? And you need all the laps you can. And especially in a session like that, where you've lost a couple of minutes with a tyre change and maybe another pit stop for a cross, the teams that elected to cross when it was a live session surprised me, because that was just going to eat into the time even more. And at Lincoln Co, they can reflect on that session. But Nestor Girolami for Hyundai fastest, for Volcano Motorsport, the Audi of Rob Huff second, Marco Butti for Goat Racing third, John Philippi for Volcano fourth, Dusan Borkovic fifth in another of the Goat Racing Hondas, and then sixth, Esteban Guerrieri for Goat. So the Lincoln Co is quite a long way down. Ted Bjork, the best of them, eighth for the Cyan team. There's your order. Girolami by 0.389 of a second, quicker than Huff, with Butti third, Philippi, Borkovic, Guerrieri rounding out the top six. Seventh was Rainy He from Lo Se Ho, Andy Chan ninth, and Ted Bjork quite a long way back in 10th from Mikkel Ashkener and Norbert Mikulich. Santiago Urrutia 13th from Ma Xinhua and Jan Erlache. Max Hart 16th. And then David Zhu 17th ahead of 18th fastest, the Zhang Lincoln Co. Right, that's the end of FP2. Let's head back down to the pit lane.
I'm just in pit lane, and joining me we have team principal from BRC Hyundai, Gabriela Rizzo. Gabriela, we saw Nestor fastest in FP1, fastest in FP2, under changing conditions as well. What have you learned from these two sessions today?
Yeah, good afternoon. And well, we are quite looking for tomorrow, that is expected to be more on this condition of FP2 and even more dry. So we have forced a bit as soon as was possible to run with slick tires. And we were just being stuck on traffic with Norby. Nestor was the luckiest one, so he can perform a good lap already on rain tires and after on the slick, and so that's why he's leading. But we felt all the three cars in the window of the setup, so we look forward tomorrow with positiveness.
Obviously a big weekend for BIC Hyundai. You got Norby leading, just 10-point lead. Very, very small at this stage of the game and here at this racetrack. How's he feeling?
Well, feel good, and it's not the first time that we are here in Macau battling in this condition, so I think that the team has the experience. We have a great car, we have great drivers, so let's maybe we are ready to fight.
Thank you, Gabriele. Best of luck for qualifying. Thank you.
So Nestor Girolami, the fastest then for the BRC Hyundai squad, and the margin just 0.3 of a second. Quite a gap back before you have the third place car, that of Marco Butti, but hard to really gauge too much in that given the limited running that we have. The track's still being cleared, so you can understand why the decision was very easy to make about the session not resuming. So you don't get a lot of track time if people start throwing it at the weeds. The Lincoln Co team can hopefully reflect on that session in a fairly sanguine stage and think, well, if we'd have had proper mileage, if we hadn't had all the interruptions, we'd have been able to get into a run plan and be nearer the top. As it is, there's work to be done when we get to qualifying for the Kumho FIA TCR World Tour tomorrow here at Macau.